Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we are back. I still can't hear very well. I had to take a night off last night due to this earache I have in this ear right here, and finally got the pain under control. But we are back. Ron Felber is our guest. He's got a brand new book out called The Unwanted. You can find it on his website. The best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you here as well, including race fan in the gold medal position, Michael Fontaine with a silver, SJ with a bronze medal. Now, I know the Thursday and Friday shows are not posted yet. I just wasn't feeling good to post them. I will get them up as soon as possible. Eternity Eternal, how you doing? And the Period Dot. He'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio, Cosmic Joe, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, Kitty Catty Whack, how are you? Tim in the Backwoods, how you doing, brother? I still had a good time with you out in the forest, man. We got to go back for Bigfoot very, very soon. Tracy Benna, Dragonfly, Troy SR71, good to see you all. Abbott Hoffman, Thunderhead, Chatbot Marco is back. Chatbot Marco will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Les Paul Holland strumming away on his Les Pauls. God, he has a nice guitar collection. Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. Hope you're having just a wonderful evening. You're the best. I love your messages in the morning. Means so much to me. Scrolling on down, let's say hello to Abbott Hoffman. And who's next? Number 28 in your program, starting at left defense from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Janssen. Corey, how you doing? Good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call tonight, there's Tim Mothman and his goatee. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Flat 6, Sierra, nice to see you both. As we continue on with our roll call, Jacqueline D., welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, Candy Wolf, nice to see you. Robert Lamoth, thank you for coming on in. Ozzy, good to see you. Good morning, Skip Tamalu. How are you this morning? Operation Shutdown, good to see you. Thomas Rock, thanks for coming on in. Neil Attenberry, we missed you in Reno, man. You got to come next year. Silent Listen, how you doing? As we continue on with our roll call. Lord Buckethead, the Soothsayer, hope you're doing well, my friend. Strum away. And B, good to see you. Marty Burback. And Mr. Super Sidewinder, welcome to SOR Chat. T-Bone, my man, thank you for coming on in. Bench pressing 885 pounds one time. Algaray over on Twitch. How you doing? Paul, how you doing, man? Good to see you. All right, continuing with our roll call. There's Digger Dog, Road Flare, Dave Waters. Good to see you all. Ron Baca, thanks for coming on in. Hi, Christine Lynn. Thank you for joining us. Melvin from Mars, Paris Solo, Robert Anthony. Good to see you all. Christine Lynn, once again, because I wanted to say it twice. That's just a simple answer. All right, Richard Minnick, Lee the Bee. Good to see you both. And there's Jeff Steve Garvey. He'll hit a home run for you. Travis William Moostus, good to have you here. Cosmic Joe, thank you for kicking off this super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Good job, Joe. Thank you very much. All right, we are there's FU Zaddy Finnegas over on Twitch. How you doing? Let's start the radio side. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us as we take you down a nice road of true crime. Ron Felber is here as our guest. We are in roll call right now, hanging on out, waiting for the arrival of Bill WD-40 to lube us up for tonight's show. And CJ Barry, how you doing, my man? Good to see you. Thank you for coming on in. Don't forget the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis as well. Let's see here. The store is open on our Spaced Out Radio website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. I'm trying so hard to be enthusiastic here, but my jaw and my ear just will not let me. Robert Lamoth, how you doing? And I apologize for this, guys. I really do, but I want from the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. Thank you so much for tuning us in tonight. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show with one of my favorite guests tonight. Author Ron Felber is back. He's got a brand new book out called The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler. We're going to learn all about this. It's not just true crime, people. A lot of paranormal and supernatural activity go along with it as well. Then in hour 3, Steve Stockton joins us from Tales Untold. Lee Strauss filling in for Jackie Harmon tonight on the Cryptid Report. Why? Well, Jackie's internet is out. It's out. She can't hook it up. So Lee's filling in tonight. We'll get her all done. It'll be a good show, I promise. Ron Felber is the author of fiction and nonfiction books, including television dramas and film documentaries. His latest book, The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler, has been called the most frightening book about demonic possession ever written. Ron began his writing career as a deputy sheriff, writing for True Detection magazine. He went on to pen novels for the iconic Nick Carter series, including The Blue Ice Affair, Death Mission Havana, and Blood Ultimatum. Ron is a graduate of Georgetown University, and he is a frequent guest on talk shows just like this. If you want his books, head on over to his website, ronfelber.com. And we love it with Ron being here all the time because, he's become like family around here. Yes, Ron, you know what? The fact that we've got this relationship with you now, where when you get a new book out, you reach out to us and say, hey, man, you got any airtime for me? And the answer is always yes. We love it when you're here, my friend. How are you?
Much appreciated, Dave. Thanks so much for the introduction. I'm great. Everything's good. The Unwelcomed just won, actually about 2 weeks ago, the Maxi Award, the 2024 Maxi Award for Book of the Year. And that's, I'm a guy that could buy 100,000 lottery tickets and not scratch, $5. But in this case, it was about 5,700 entries, including some big name authors, and we came out on top. So I'm happy.
Congratulations on that. I mean,
Thanks.
That had to be a little bit of a shock to you.
It really was, like I said, that John Grisham was, all the publishers do their best work. They put out their new releases. And so my book was published by Black Rose, which is not a large publisher, but somehow or another, it wound up in the right hands. And I guess they have a committee, and the committee voted it as the best book because they had 12 different categories, like horror, psychological thrillers, women's fiction, etc. So they had maybe 12 categories, but this swept all of them. So I was really, really pleased about that.
Well, you know what? I can understand why, because you were so thorough with your books and your research and your investigation into what's gone on. I mean, so many people think when you write a book, you grab a story, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, and you just let your imagination run wild with it. But you were somebody who, you use your former career as a real catalyst to digging deep into these stories. Has that made the job easier for writing, or does it make you go down deeper in a rabbit hole where eventually you have to edit the books more because you put too much in?
Yeah. Like a lot of things, the trick sometimes is to be able to sift through what's important and what is not so important. And in this case, I had like a treasure trove of information about the Clara Fowler case that Dr. Morton Prince, who was the primary psychotherapist involved in this case, kept meticulous notes, had a stenographer there for all of the sessions because he knew it was an historic case. And all of that is at the Harvard Medical School library, which I had access to. So I had all the letters between them, the transcripts for the psychiatric sessions. So then what you have to do, of course, is to figure out what makes a book interesting and what's the kind of thing that you can leave out that may be a little intriguing, but not mainstream for what you're trying to accomplish.
Ron, for a lot of budding authors out there, myself included, what makes a good book?
That's a good question. I think this is what Bill Blatty told me, my friend William Peter Blatty, who was the author of The Exorcist. We got to be buddies, and he gave me a lot of good advice. And one of the things he said, and I tell this to all writers that have this as an application, in primitive times, there were tribes. And in those tribes, there'd be a campfire, and they would have a medicine man, they'd have hunters, they'd have this and that, but they'd also have a storyteller. And the job of the storyteller was to sit around the fire and tell stories that were of great interest, that meant something to them, the people that were the readers or the listeners, and that taught them something. And so he said, nothing's changed. A good book, first of all, attracts an audience because it's a topic that people are interested in. It's done with some artistic ability, and it touches on a universal theme that everyone responds to, or most everyone responds to. So those are the three things.
See, you know what? I fell in love with fictional writing with Tom Clancy.
Sure. Yeah.
Rest his soul. And the one thing that I learned from Tom Clancy in reading his Jack Ryan series was the fact that I was able to not read a book, but watch a movie within my head through the words.
Exactly.
And I don't know for anybody else, but to me, that's what makes a good book, is if I can actually visualize what is actually going on. And I remember in one book of Tom Clancy's where all of a sudden he is describing an area that I knew personally near Vancouver. And I knew the streets that these terrorists were driving on. I knew the roads. I'd driven those roads myself. And I remember waking up screaming, these terrorists are right here, and I couldn't.
Yes.
How do you paint a picture in order to create a movie in one's mind?
Well, there's a couple things there, but one of the key things is research. So if you take a Tom Clancy novel or a Grisham novel or whoever, a Michael Crichton novel, you see it's believable because it's anchored in reality. They have facts, just like you did with the setting, that are true to life. And so even the fiction, which isn't true, it's made up, is anchored. It's anchored by detail, technical terms, locations. And so people tend to get into it and believe it. The other thing is, who's the narrator? Who's telling the story? The main character should always be, as they say, endlessly fascinating. So the protagonist has to be somebody that isn't boring and somebody that keeps surprising the reader.
For you, has that been easy to accomplish, or is that one of the difficulties of writing long form novels?
It depends. It depends on the book. I mean, I've written books about leadership. I've written books about heroin in Burma. I've written books about alien abduction, etc. I think that the first thing and the most difficult is to find your story. So if you can say in maybe 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, this is my story, and this is what I'm trying to accomplish, you won't be going. The next thing is the narration, and so that it flows easily and people can get involved in it. Much like somebody sitting at a bar, let's say, and you've got a beer and I've got a beer, and I tap you on the shoulder and I say, Dave, you're not going to believe what happened to me today. And now I tell my story. But it should be with that kind of intimacy with the reader.
And I agree with you. To me, if you can build that intimacy and that interaction with a reader, you got them.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
got them for pretty much every book you ever write.
Exactly. It's got to mean something to the reader. If the reader says, I don't care, it's over. So the first thing to do is to hook the reader, gain that intimacy where they relate so much that they feel like they're in the book. As a matter of fact, there was a book by Cormac McCarthy, who's just a very good writer. He wrote a book called, I guess, The Crossing, I think. And, the main character dies. And I go, oh my God, I don't want this main character to die because I want another book. This is important to me. And that's what you have to do, is establish this relationship with the reader where what's going on matters to them and they become emotionally involved and sometimes intellectually involved, which is even better.
Ron, what's for you the thrill of writing, the thrill of captivating a novel that absolutely piques the interest of your reader?
Yeah. Sometimes you're right. Graham Greene, famous writer, used to call them entertainments. So I'm not going to say they're throwaway things, but they're just stories. They're stories that are entertaining. So they're entertainments. But then occasionally you do something that you feel is important. And for example, I feel like the Unwelcomed, the Curious Case of Clara Fowler, is important because really I make a case in it for a spiritual world. I make the case that what we see in front of us are sort of icons, like on a computer. They're symbols. They're not really reality. And the real reality is one that we don't see. It's invisible. The important things, as I say, are invisible to the eyes. And so the case I make is that there is really and truly a spiritual world, that there's good and evil in this spiritual world that acts upon us moment to moment. And if you have a message like that that's important to you, the book becomes more important to you and hopefully to the reader.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Ron, out of all the topics you've chosen in this latest one, has everything to do with from murder to true crime to demonic possession. How do you choose a story that you are going to develop into a novel?
David, just cut out for a second. Could you just repeat that last part?
Yeah, not a problem. How do you develop a story? Or pardon me, how do you develop a topic that you want to turn into a novel?
Yeah. The first question I ask, first of all, I've got to be interested in it. I always write about things that interest me. The next question I ask, would a million other people be interested in this too? And it's you have to write for an audience, and at least I do. Some people say, well, I write for myself, or I write for my mom or for my kids, whatever. All fine. I write for an audience, and I try to identify that audience and say, this is a topic that I think will intrigue and delight people.
And it definitely does. I mean, it's selling like hotcakes right now, where people can find it, ronfelber.com. We're going to get deep into this subject, into the Unwanted, when we come back from the break at the bottom of the hour. But just a few more questions for you, Ron,
Sure.
before we continue on and get to the juice of tonight's show, as I like to call it, because everybody loves a little bit of juice in their lives.
That's right.
How much fun is it to write a novel like this, number one? And number two, how long does it take?
Well, it varies. I wrote a book called A Man of Indeterminate Value, which I think is probably one of my best books, in a couple of months. And this was a fiction book. And it's a little bit like you had said, where you sit down, you have these ideas. And really, a lot of the stories, I had a main character named Jack Madson, who really, in many ways, was me. So it was easy to put together that way. A book like The Unwelcomed, I got this book from Bill Blatty when he was filming The Exorcist at Georgetown University in 1972, right? No, 72. I was a sophomore at the time at Georgetown. They were filming the movie, and he gave me this story, told me, how to get the information, the documentation at the Harvard Medical School Library, and I did. I tried to write it, and I wrote it like a documentary. And then I looked at it and said, it just doesn't work. It doesn't have that sizzle. It doesn't have the juice. It's too dry. It's too textbook. It's too much like a textbook. So what I decided to do 50 years later is to try again. I had all the research still, and these ideas had percolated in my head for a long time. And I decided to write it like Truman Capote wrote in Cold Blood. So it's a true story, but I wrote it like a novel. And I instead of like a medical textbook, I wanted to get at the feelings of the terror that this woman experienced, get at the brutality of what she experienced. And those are feelings. And so that's what I injected into this, where it was the characters' feelings as these real events were going on.
Have you always been into the supernatural, paranormal? I mean, you have the famous book, The Mojave Incident, about alien abduction. Are these topics that have always intrigued you, or did they intrigue you because they look like interesting topics to write about?
Yeah, I've been lucky as a writer. I mean, I've really fallen into some fine stories, and one of them was the Mojave Incident, and it was really my first foray into the paranormal. And it wasn't something I went out of my way for. It fell in my lap. A friend of a friend. They didn't want to tell the story, but they felt comfortable with me, fortunately, and the story got told. But it really varies. It really varies. I've been lucky to get these stories, and the last, two of them anyway, which are very related, as it turns out, very connected. The Mojave Incident about alien abduction, and the Unwelcomed about demonic possession. The case I've come to these days, very recently, is that there are huge connections between alien abduction, which I become something of an expert on, and demonic possession, which I become something of an expert on. And I looked at the transcripts of the hypnotic sessions from the Hesses, from the Mojave Incident, and the transcripts from the hypnotic sessions of Clara Fowler. And there's so many similarities that crisscross. And people, I think, are really starting to look at UFOs and aliens as perhaps interdimensional as opposed to extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I still don't know what them aliens are, but I'm willing to find out. I honestly keep putting it out to to the universe that I got a big enough backyard that could land a craft, no problem. They're not landing, Ron.
Yeah.
They're not landing.
Dave, maybe you need sparklers or something.
I don't know. I you know what? I got enough night lights out there where they should be able to find it, no problem. I don't know. Maybe I gotta play some David Bowie Rocket Man out there. I don't know. But
well, one thing I can tell you don't want to do is don't use a Ouija board to contact anyone, because that's a kind of portal, as they say, to let in some malevolence.
You're not a fan?
Not a fan of demonic possession now. I could do without it.
Did I ever tell you my Ouija board story?
No, please.
Oh my. Now, this may be familiar to some of our audience members. Back in 2013, a bunch of us were using not a Ouija board, but a spirit board. And the spirit board had a specific message for me that I'm going to paraphrase the story here because we only got 3 minutes. That in 9 weeks' time, the Canadian Lotto 649 would be worth $43 million, and you're going to win it. And so I didn't put much stock in it. I went, okay, let's just do this. And I said, where do I buy the ticket? Said, same place you always do, which is the gas station that I always bought my tickets. I said, should I look at the numbers? No, because I never look at the numbers. I just fold it up and put it in my wallet. All right. I'm superstitious that way. Let's try it. Be damned, Ron, if 9 weeks later, the draw is for $43 million, which is an odd number in Canadian lottery because Canadian lottery only usually goes up by 2, 5, or 10. Nothing equals a 3.
Oh, yeah. I see.
And 9 weeks later, I buy my ticket that day, do exactly like they say. And I forget, I go to work that day, I forget about the ticket. So this is a Friday night or Saturday night. We go back to my friend's house, hop on the spirit board, totally forgot about the ticket. And within 5 minutes, the board keeps wanting to talk to me. And I said, well, what's going on? And it spelled out lottery ticket. Congratulations.
Wow.
Right? And I went, oh, crap, I forgot about the lottery ticket. So I ran to my vehicle, grabbed the lottery ticket. My phone was acting up. I couldn't find the numbers. Finally found the numbers about 10 minutes later, and I didn't have a single number.
You see, maybe somebody played a practical joke on you, Dave.
They were totally pranking me on the other side. And but I was mad. I was literally screaming at the board, like, do you
screaming at the spirits, right?
Yeah. I'm like, do you think this is funny to play with my life like this? Now that's a mild case.
It is.
But it just goes to show how you cannot really trust who or what is on the other side. It's not always Aunt Mabel telling you her cookie recipe, Ron, as we got about a minute ago.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, in the book, Leonora Piper is a clairvoyant. It's one of the players, one of the characters in the story, and the Clara Fowler in the demonic presence, possessed, says to her, you think you can play with just one half of the paranormal world, but there are two halves, and I'm the other half.
That's scary enough right there. Scary enough right there. Ron, I'm going to get you to hold on. We got about 20 seconds left, and we do have to get ready for our break here at the bottom of the hour. So really, there's no point in asking you a quick question here before we go to break, because you won't be able to answer it until we get back. Ron Felber is our guest tonight. He's got a brand new book out called The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler. It's about murder. It's about true crime. It's about demonic possession, paranormal, supernatural happenings. Maxie Award winner Ron Felber. RonFelber.com is his website where you can find the book. right now. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio as we break this book down next. That was a fast half hour.
Yeah, it really was. Wow. Well, you see, we're going to get you out of this with your earache and all, and hopefully feeling better by the next half hour. How about that?
Oh, man. I could barely hear you, man. Like, thank goodness I got a speaker right here.
Oh, yeah. For the other ear, right?
Oh, yeah. This is a good ear. I could actually hear it, what you're saying here. But my speaker right in front here can't hear us a thing. So I know a lot of people are asking in the chat room. I have a really, really bad earache infection going on right now. And yesterday it kicked my butt pretty hard. And, I couldn't shake the pain at all. I had 7 showers yesterday just to get hot water on the side of my head to make it feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time yesterday, I just got out of the shower, dried off, and the pain was so bad, I just turned around and went in the shower again for another 20 minutes. Yeah. Oh, I couldn't even handle it.
Yeah, no, steam really helps things like that, at least temporarily.
Yeah. Sandra Kincaid, yes, I did go to the doctor. I do have some drops. I'm on aspirin to take away the inflammation. I'm on extra strength Tylenol to take away the pain and the headaches. I'm on ear drops. There isn't much I'm not on right now. I'm like a pharmacy right now. And then I am going to try, but when I went to the doctor the other day, my ear was so swollen he could barely see my eardrum. He could barely get in there to see my eardrum. So, Paramarv, how you doing? No, I wish I was on some morphine right now. I'd be feeling pretty loopy. Rob would be hosting the show. Just to let everybody know, Rob G will be hosting the show tomorrow night. I have a special night planned. I am going down to the Vancouver area to watch my daughter graduate from college. And no offense, but my daughter is a little bit more important. This event's a little bit more important. So.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Excited.
Yeah. Well, financially, it doesn't hurt either to be over that.
Oh, yeah.
I put 3 of them through college, and it wasn't easy.
I'm going to go to college, and the other one, I don't know yet. He changes his mind so much, but that's okay.
Yeah, it seems like boys take a little longer to find themselves as opposed to girls.
He's only 10, so he's got a while.
Okay, there you go.
I'm still pushing fighter pilot.
Why not? Yeah.
His grandfather was a commercial airline pilot, so.
And maybe he'll give you some, if he's a fighter pilot, give you some information for your show.
Bingo.
Yeah. There's videotapes. Dad, I've got some new videotapes of this UFO that you really need to see.
You got that right. He better. None of this NDA crap with old dad here.
That's right.
That's right. Quick hello to Woo Poo. How you doing? And NHI, good to see you. Travis, I got your question. We'll ask Ron in the next half hour. Yes, Elderberry Elixir. Lorelei Snyder in the chat room. Her and her husband, Tim in the backwoods, gave me this hat here. So it's a beautiful hat here. Sasquatch being abducted by aliens. She has this cute little coffee shop in town and tea shop in town. So I went there looking for some soup today, but she was sold out of soup. But she made me this incredible fruit smoothie that I had like everything from pomegranate to blueberries to everything in there. It was so good. Just exactly what I needed. Yeah, she's taking care of me. Yeah, Jorgensen, how you doing? Yes, I totally believe in Vicks Vapor Rub too. I am a huge proponent of Vicks Vapor Rub and Vicks Inhaler. This shit's the bomb right here. Absolutely. So, who else is joining us here? As we got a little bit of time. Let's see. Anybody else?
Do you know the other thing you might try is Benadryl?
Oh yeah.
It shrinks the membranes, your nasal passages and your earway.
Maybe all right, Ron, hold on right there. We're going to come back. Okay. Nikki in Seattle, how are you? Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio is now underway. We're glad you are with us wherever you are on this fantastic planet. My name is Dave Scott, man who carries a lot of tinfoil with him wherever I go. I pretty much Bigfoot castings as well. Yeah, I do that. You go in the back of my Jeep right now, you'll see two things. You'll see dowsing rods and Bigfoot casting equipment. Has anybody else got that? I do. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free. We're not like the other people who charge for them. Nope. Ours are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and you can hear us on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Author of The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler, Ron Felber is here, a great friend of Spaced Out Radio. He is a Maxi Award winner for Book of the Year with The Unwelcomed. His website, ronfelber.com. Ron, thank you so much for being here. We got to get into this book right now.
Not at all. My pleasure.
Oh, and for people not watching on YouTube and listening on the radio, Ron has what you would call a 10 out of 10 mustache. The lip blade is amazing. I'm going to be honest, Ron. I can't stop staring at it because it's so beautiful.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
But let's get to your book. Let's talk about the case of Clara Fowler. Who is Clara Fowler?
Clara Fowler was, first of all, I have to tell you, it's set in 1898 in Back Bay, Boston, among the Beacon Hill elite. And Clara Fowler was a Radcliffe student who was 22. She went to a regular doctor complaining about loss of appetite and chronic fatigue and nightmares. This was in Putnam, a Boston Brahmin. It turned out that she was starting to display symptoms of demonic possession. And by that, I mean speaking in strange voices, strange languages, and kind of menacing and threatening. So he turned her over to Dr. Morton Prince, who was a psychotherapist and one of the founders, along with William James, of abnormal psychiatry. And they studied this woman from 1898 to 1904, when she was eventually cured through an exorcism.
Wow. How did you come across this story?
Well, when I was a student at Georgetown quite a number of years ago, it would have been 1972, they were filming the movie The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty and Billy Friedkin. And I was a student. I was writing all along. I've been writing since the 6th grade. So I had my first novel, my first book. And I desperately wanted to get it into the hands of William Peter Blatty. And eventually I met his secretary, who passed it along to him. I went back home to New Jersey, where my parents lived and I lived at the time, for Thanksgiving. I got a phone call from Bill Blatty saying he liked the story a lot. We met. He said, it's a little personal, as most first novels are. He said, but I'll tell you what, I will help you with your next novel. and I'll even give you a good head start on it. And he gave me the background on the Clara Fowler case and sent me in the direction of the Harvard Medical School Library, the archives there, where it was just a treasure trove of research.
So Clara Fowler was a young lady who became possessed.
Yes.
Okay. How old was she? Where did she live?
She was 22 years old. She was originally from Fall River. And interestingly enough, and this plays heavily into the account, Fall River, of course, is where Lizzie Borden, right around that time, acts brutal murders of her mother and father. And oddly enough, in a town that hadn't had a murder in 50 years, 4 miles away and 6 months later, a farm worker named Jose Corriero murdered the wife of his boss in her kitchen. Interestingly enough, a lot like Lizzie Borden, who really had no memory and said she was totally innocent of the murders, though she really wasn't. And Juan Corriero, who said the same, actually committed this brutal murder, then went into town and bought a pair of shoes. Had no recollections at all.
Nice guy.
Yeah. Well, actually, too, and this plays heavily into the story, Clara Fowler's siblings, 2 of them, were murdered in Fall River. And the city marshal, a guy named Rufus Bassett Hilliard, goes to Boston from Fall River to solicit Clara Fowler's help to help prosecute her father, who he's convinced strangled these 2 children. And what he finds is that Clara Fowler is being treated for what in medieval times would certainly have been considered demonic possession.
Did we know if it truly was demonic possession or just the sign of the times where, I mean, don't forget, these were people who were, murdering people for witchcraft back then.
Yeah, well, that was a little prior to that, in terms of time. But you have to remember, this was the cream of the cream. The people that studied Clara Fowler, Dr. Morton Prince, William James, Richard Hodgson, who was a psychic researcher, George Waterman, again a lecturer at Harvard University Medical School. These were the foremost physicians in the world, pretty much. Rivals certainly with Sigmund Freud in Austria, and so there's nothing backwoods about this. I mean, these were intellectuals and scientists that studied her for this period of time. So was it really demonic possession? William James, who was really in the middle of all of this, thought that it was. Hodgson, of course, who was a psychic researcher, certainly thought that it was, as did Leonora Piper, who was a medium and clairvoyant, celebrity medium and clairvoyant at the time. Prince, who was a materialist, really considered Sigmund Freud an arch rival. Prince wanted to lead the psychiatric movement into the 20th century and be the iconic figure that leads the way. And so he thought the Fowler case, if he could show that demonic possession, things that in other times would have been considered an infestation of the human being by spirits, if he could prove this was a psychiatric condition, he thought that he would outshine Freud and wind up being the leader of the behavioralist movement, the materialist movement into the 20th century. So it was divided, and part of the book really is just that question, because Hodgson put some brilliant arguments together. You've got a woman that is clairvoyant. She has unbridled rage at religious articles. She speaks in languages that she has no way of knowing, Aramaic, things like that. The strength of superhuman strength. In the demonic state, she doesn't feel pain, has no need for food, is awake 24/7, predicts the future and the intimate secrets of the doctors. So his argument is that all of these symptoms one telekinesis, something like that can happen. The superhuman strength can happen, et cetera, et cetera. But when you put it all together, all of these symptoms in one individual at the same time, it's demonic possession. And of course, Prince didn't agree, but there's a very striking argument. And this is really the crux of the book in a lot of ways. Hodgson, the spiritualist, the psychic researcher, says, "Don't you see, Morton? Can you not bring yourself to understand? I beg you, consider at least the possibility that here at last, in the city of Boston, 1898, is tangible evidence of transcendence. If there are demons, there must be angels, and probably a God and life everlasting." So it's really a book that has that on different levels, that really tells a story on different levels.
Ron Felber is here tonight talking about his brand new book, The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler. As you looked into this book and you looked into the research that goes along with it, did you find a lot of evil that went along with the story and the evidence that came out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't want to create a spoiler here, but Clara Fowler, in her demonic state, was a totally different personality, a totally different individual, and demonic by any definition that you might have. As a matter of fact, while in her demonic state, the demon despised Clara Fowler and wanted the body, and felt that if it could torture her to the point where she couldn't eat and couldn't sleep, it believed that if she died, it would take over the body. If her spirit left, that spirit could impress itself, forever. And so Prince actually says, and this is to confound the demon, you have the same arms and legs as she does. You have the same hands and hair and mouth, etc. Why aren't you Clara Fowler? The demonic presence says, these things are no more than the clothes that you wear. It's just what I occupy. It has nothing to do with me. And it firmly believed that and tortured her, even to the point where she would wake up with lacerations on her back, bathed in alcohol. She would wake up with furniture piled high to the ceiling of her room, on top of it, paralyzed for hours on end. It's really a very strange and unique story. And if it's about evil, yeah, there's plenty of evil and a creepy sort of atmospheric that just sort of permeates you as you get familiar with the story.
You're leaving us all on edge here, my man. Leaving us all on edge. How did this tie into murder?
Again, the father, who was a terrible man, and an alcoholic and a wife beater and an abuser of his children, was maybe you could just, I lost the thread of the question. Could you repeat it, please?
How did the demonic possession tie into the murder?
Yeah. So the father was actually a member of a satanic cult. And there was a satanic cult at that time. And by the way, I think in 1979 and 1980, there was another satanic cult that was discovered in Fall River that involved 3 murders where 3 young women, the oldest was 20, and I think the youngest was 15, were stoned to death in the name of Satan. So there's a creepy history to Fall River, and it doesn't end or begin with Lizzie Borden.
Wow. Do you think it was the area that was causing a lot of these demonic possessions, satanic rituals?
I think that like anything, it's a matter of letting something in, and you can let good things in. You have the ability to block or leave entrance for something. For example, let's say you want to be a doctor, and so what you let in is the things that doctors do. You study books and read books that doctors would read. You go to school and learn things. You hopefully have a compassion, but you let that in. This is you, but you're also bringing things in. If, on the other hand, you're somebody like Jack the Ripper or H.H. Holmes, you let evil in, and you become, in my view, a prowling predator that actually becomes a demon, that really becomes the devil incarnate. And as a deputy sheriff in Washington, deported federal prisoners, and I can tell you, these aren't people that vomited pea soup and had their head turned around, but trust me, they were demonic.
Now, when you say demonic, were they all devil worshippers, or were they going after people who were innocent but maybe didn't know what was going on behind the scenes?
No, I think that in this particular case, in the case of the book, these murders were related to the satanic cult.
How prevalent was the satanic cult back then in that area?
These things aren't. I don't think where you write on the sidewalk with chalk. We have a satanic cult in town. So it's pretty secretive, but the doctor was involved, and the Fowler was involved, and actually it was uncovered by a deputy, the marshal's deputy in Fall River. Rufus Bassett Hilliard had a deputy that stumbled upon the remnants of a black mass, a place where black masses were held.
Right. Okay, so here let's get back to Clara Fowler here, because it really does revolve around her.
Yes, it does.
She was a young student.
Mm-hmm.
She was somebody who was having to relive a nightmare from her childhood.
Mm-hmm.
She went to school. I mean, it also got very religious with her, with Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ being around.
Yes.
It seems also unbelievable and confusing, yet it all ties together. Explain that part, if you don't mind.
Well, there are stories about Padre Pio, Francis of Assisi, etc. Sometimes the people that are the holiest, if you want to call it that, the people that have religious callings, deep religious callings, they might have stigmata. Padre Pio did, so did Francis of Assisi. And they might talk about visitations from the Virgin Mary or from Jesus Christ himself. Clara Fowler had visitations, even from a child, from the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ. And she wanted to enter a convent. She wanted to finish her degree and enter a convent and be a teacher in a nunnery. And actually, the demonic presence is a little bit funny almost. So Clara Fowler doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. She's really a saintly kind of person. So very subject to maybe an attack by something like this. And the demonic presence, Prince has some cigarettes on his pack of cigarettes on.
Well, Ron, you froze on us there. You froze on us. Just an interesting story indeed. We'll just wait for Ron to come back here momentarily. The beautiful part about internet connections. There he is. Ron, okay. We got you back now.
Okay, so where did I leave off? I was waxing poetic there for a second. So
you were very poetic.
The demonic presence was with Prince, talking to Prince, and there were cigarettes, a pack of cigarettes on Prince's desk. So the demonic presence says, "Let me have a cigarette. I'm going to smoke a cigarette because I know she hates cigarettes. She'll wake up and have the taste of cigarettes in her mouth, and it'll drive her crazy." And he just like this sort of, casually says, "She wants to be a nun. She'll never be a nun as long as I'm around." It's really weird.
Wow. Did the demons ever give up their name?
Yeah. Abaddon was the demonic presence, a changer of shapes. And by the way, this is really a mind blower, Dave. But Bassett Hilliard, Rufus Bassett Hilliard, the city marshal that gets involved in all of this because of his connection with Clara and the father, he studies this, finds out that she's being treated for this possession, and really has a kind of is in a kind of quandary, because in a way he's wondering, in this demonic stage, there is another murder, and actually of Clara Fowler's ex-husband, who is brutally murdered in Boston. And when that happens, he starts connecting dots. And when he starts connecting dots, he starts to wonder. And he actually goes to an insane asylum where John Fowler, her father, is housed, and confronts him. And it's a great, great scene in the book.
Wow. I know I'm saying wow a lot tonight. Okay. But I mean, just knowing that you being the author and the stories that you are telling, it blows me away that this actually happened, that there is actually true record of a bunch of different illegal shenanigans and religious shenanigans going on that would cost the lives of people and really torture a young lady for her entire, early life.
For years. As a matter of fact, Prince wrote a book. This is a 1906 book called Dissociation of a Personality. And in it, he leaves out, and this is what made the research difficult. He changes the name, her name, and discover that and discover her background. But all of the basic stories, for example, I mean, he talks about the demonic presence and some of the things that are involved with that. So let me see if I can find a quote or two. Yeah. This is from his book. Clara saw the Virgin in a marked way, describing her appearance, using her hands to point out the positions of the entities involved and their surroundings, as if they stood before her. She regarded herself as possessed in the same way that a person in the Bible is said to be possessed. Then he says, putting my finger to her forehead, I held up a cross, reciting the words from the rites of exorcism. The effect was remarkable. She shrank from me like Mephistopheles, shrinking from the cross, cursing God and the saints and all things holy, screaming that it made a terrible, painful sensation run through her body. She feared it more than anything. Another quote, hallucinations beset her on every hand. As she walked through these streets, an endless procession of black-robed figures accompanied her, some with familiar faces, most with countenances that changed horribly moment to moment. So this is all from his medical records, so true it is.
My goodness. And where were these records again?
At the Harvard Medical School library. Actually, the book is a great source, but the background records where, you can research the names and whatnot, most of them are struck out, but occasionally you come across a letter that has a signature, and it's the signature with the real name. They're handwritten notes and stuff. So it was helpful.
Incredible.
And I think even Bill Blatty, he looked at this as research for The Exorcist. This case, along with another one that happened in 1949 in Maryland and then in St. Louis, and where the exorcism actually happened. And he didn't really know. I hired a detective to work with me to get into the family, to get into John Fowler, to get into the characters in Rufus Hilliard. This is something that Blatty didn't know because he wasn't researching it as a particular book. So
Ron, hold on right there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be back right after the break. Author Ron Felber, The Unwelcomed, at ronfelber.com. Curious Case of Clara Fowler. He is a Maxi Award winner for Book of the Year with this one. You want it for your life. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Ron. We are through 1 hour. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm just going to put you in the green room here, and I'll be right back, okay?
Sure.
All right. Be right back, people. I got to go get something for my ear. It's getting sore, so be right back. All right. Good to have you all here. Let's get Ron back in here. You having fun, Ron?
Yes, I am.
Right on. Hi, Pat Leo Films. How you doing, buddy? And who else has joined us here? Jennifer, nice to see you. I don't know what's worse, the pain or the tinnitus that goes along with this damn ear thing.
Yeah, I don't envy you.
No, it's not fun.
No, it's not fun.
Not fun at all. I can tell you that. I'm glad you're having fun with us tonight, buddy.
No, it's great. Actually, it's very, like I said, very comfortable and very easy. I hope you're enjoying it too. I hope.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Despite your
always. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling better for you.
No, not at all. It happens.
Right.
Just get better for your daughter's graduation.
Oh yeah.
You know what you might need is an antibiotic. How about that?
Oh, I'm on antibiotics for my ear now with the drops that they have.
I see.
Here we go with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. Thank you for listening to us each and every night on our radio stations. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. You can find us on Patreon and the Space Travelers Club. Hey, let's get to it. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we got for us tonight, Clam? Ivres. Ivres is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Ron Felber is here. He's got a brand new book out called The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler, which can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or even easier at ronfelber.com. It's an award winner from the Maxi Awards for Book of the Year, and this is a great one. Ron, thank you for sharing it with our audience tonight.
My pleasure, Dave. Thanks for having me.
How does this case end up?
You know, it ends up in the most, it's such a peculiar case. It ends up in a very peculiar way. She is cured. And actually, she winds up marrying one of the team of doctors, Dr. George Waterman, who was Prince's protege, Dr. Prince's protege, a younger man than Prince by maybe 15 years or so, and a Harvard Medical School graduate. She marries him because her name was expunged and because, it was changed. They used a pseudonym. No one knew that it was her. They got married. He had a very successful medical practice on Beacon Street, about 10 doors down from Morton Prince's office. And she became a socialite and, a high-level socialite in Boston high society. How's that for a twist?
Did she ever have recall of what happened to her?
She, to my knowledge, there was a book, a little autobiography that was unpublished that I uncovered that was in the Harvard Medical School library, and she wrote it. And again, it wasn't long. It was about maybe 20 typewritten pages, but she had relapses. So what she would experience was missing time. And, that's a phrase, of course, that's used in alien abductions all the time, missing time. But when the demonic presence took over, it would be without her knowledge. She would have no memory of what happened during that time. But what she would have is the remnants, the evidence of the takeover, meaning torn clothes, as I mentioned, cigarettes or whatever, and actually sexual encounters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with her ex-husband, who actually was a member of this cult. Yeah, and there are 3 murders in the book. He's the 3rd murderer.
So realistically, she experienced everything that she had no control over. She was really all about, trying to figure out what was going on with her, because whatever was possessed inside of her didn't have any type of how can I put it, or didn't give her any type of recollection or recall.
That's correct. But there were letters. Actually, she would wake up in the morning with threatening letters, like, awful letters, saying you should put a bullet through your head. You have no chance of surviving in heaven or on earth. You will not escape my wrath. Threatening letters. There were also times when Prince notes, and this is actually in Dissociation of a Personality, where the demonic presence and Clara actually fight for control of the body. And there were times when he would have her in his office, consulting room, and literally with rapid succession, she would change from the demon to Clara. Clara would be saying, "Help, help," and the demon would be saying, "This body is mine."
Now, have you ever seen a possession face to face?
No. But this I can tell you, they're more prevalent than you might imagine. For example, the Catholic Church, up until about 15 years ago, and maybe even more like 10, only had a handful of certified exorcists that the Vatican had actually trained and certified. More recently, that number is up to over 150 because of the caseloads and the number of demonic possessions that are occurring.
I saw my first possession 3.5 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, I do a ghost tour at my local museum, and I pretty much know all the spirits that are there.
Mm.
But every now and again, we get in what we call a transient spirit that really defies what we know about what's going on. And this transient spirit attacked this lady on our ghost tour, and it was incredible. She was bent right over like the letter L. She did not make eye contact with me. Her face morphed to something different. Her voice was changing, and I had to try and get the spirit out of her.
That's pretty wild, Dave.
And it was, we had a bunch of people watching this happen as it was going on live. There is an audio recording of it. And I'll tell you, it was one of the most graphic moments I have ever seen face to face since I've got involved with this type of programming and these types of topics. And, this is a lady who doesn't drink, and she was swearing at me to get her a drink, like an alcoholic beverage. We were able to put a couple of pieces together. We think we know who the spirit may be. And actually, it's a new update for our audience because I've mentioned this story a couple of times here. But back in November of last year, there was a young man killed in an auto accident about 10 miles away from our museum. And one of the things that I was able to get confirmed through the local police was that both her and one of the psychics who was on scene had pictured this man being a 21 to 22-year-old man with mangled legs. And I was able to confirm that back in November of last year, there was a car accident, a head-on collision during the winter,
Mm-hmm.
where a young man lost his life. And I was told by the police officer who has gone on my tour before, who said he may or may not have had broken legs. He goes, I can't tell you for certain, but, and he did die at the scene or at hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So watching that happen and play out right in front of me was one of the most impactful things I've ever seen. Because I know that, like, I've channeled spirits. I know people who've channeled spirits, but this was completely different than anything I had ever seen before.
And it was definitely, in the case of the woman, definitely demonic.
I don't know if I wouldn't call it demonic. I would call it whatever it was, very angry.
Angry. Mm-hmm.
And knew its strength, which was very interesting indeed.
So what did you do, if you don't mind my asking? What did you do when you saw all this? You said you intervened.
First thing I did was I grabbed her hands because I knew something was going wrong. And I'm a pretty spiritual guy. I don't usually give that up too publicly.
Yes.
I'm a pretty spiritual guy. And the first thing I said to her name was Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
She kept looking down to her left, and she wouldn't pick her head up. And her hands were all like this.
Mm.
She was like crouched down, and she's like moving her fingers and all of this kind of weird stuff. And I said, Jamie, I need you to pick your eyes up, and I need you to pick your head up and make eye contact with me. And she couldn't do it. And then finally, after about 3 or 4 times of asking, I finally got the eye contact, but she was not there, man. She was not there at all. So I started pressing a little bit more and saying, who are you?
Yes.
Tell me your name. I'm telling you to tell me your name. I want to know your name. Wouldn't give up his name. And then there was one point there where I actually got a little bit scared because everything I was trying was not working. On how I've detached spirits from people before.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had this thought in my head at that point, Ron, where it was like, uh-oh, I'm in over my head here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Who do I call? How do I do this? And then I kind of got a butt kicking from one of my spirit guides at that exact same time, basically saying, don't give in, keep pushing, just keep going. And so I started to get a little bit strict with this guy, and I kind of started taunting him a little bit, basically saying, hey, like, are you, what kind of man are you invading a woman's body?
Yeah.
And, I started invoking the name of Jesus Christ.
I was going to ask you if you tried that as a time. How did that go?
Well, what really hit him hard was I have a blessed cross that was sent to me by one of our former guests, called Reverend Keith around here. And Reverend Keith, a number of years ago, said, look, I just feel like I needed to send this to you. It is blessed and everything. And we started rubbing that on her back. And when we started rubbing that on her back, that's when she looked up at me. Well, it wasn't her, and I kept telling her, like, Jamie, you got to fight here. Like, you have to talk to me here. You got to fight. You have to keep pushing yourself because you're the one who's going to have to, take control of your body. And she just all of a sudden started growling and screaming at the top of her lungs. And I had a hold of her hands, and she started dragging me across the floor.
Jeez.
And, Oh, it was intense. And she's like, I want to like in a deep masculine voice.
Well, this then really you've experienced the demonic possession.
Oh, it was nasty, man. It was
And
nasty.
by the way, so when you invoke the name of Jesus, or what? I mean, did that have an effect, or was it?
Oh, it made whoever was in her very very angry.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So finally, now to get it out, I had to bring him into me. To get him to release from her, I had to bring him into me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun. What
was that like?
How can I put it? I walked away from the area making sure she was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got to a safe area. I walked off the property of the museum. And from there, as silly as it may sound, back when I played hockey, Ron, I knew the nights when I had to fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I knew the nights where I had to drop my gloves, and I would play this song by the rock band Skid Row called Slave to the Grind. And this song was my pump up song.
Yeah.
Right. And so it would pump me up for the game, get my adrenaline going. And I knew that once I took that first shot, I'd be okay.
Mm-hmm.
As silly as that sounds. The reason why I bring that up is when I start getting into any type of spiritual issue, that song plays in my head where I know I have to be on the defense.
Yes.
And so I'm standing out there catching my breath, and my songs starts playing in my head, and I'm like, oh no, I was using more expletives at that point. Can't use those on radio. But I was like, he's in me, and now I need to deal with this. So I went back into the museum. There was a bunch of people in the hallway talking about what had happened. And I said, get out of my way. I've got him. He's inside of me. I need to get him out now. So I ended up contacting one of the people who helps me here with SOR, Jackie Harmon. And I ended up contacting her, and I text messaged her. I said, incident at the museum. I have a spirit attached to me. I need him out now. She goes, are you serious? I put 100%. I went, sat down. I was beady-eyed looking for my water because I was real thirsty and couldn't find my water, and sat down, started catching my breath, kind of feeling like I was not fully capacitated at that time, and went in and got her to connect with me. She was asking me a bunch of questions. I guess I was ignoring them, not on purpose.
Yeah.
And finally, she was able to connect with me and my spirit guides, and I had my spirit guides working on it. So the first thing, I have a pretty good connection, Ron, with my spirit guides. And I was able to, say to them, hey, like, what's going on here? Is he inside of me? Okay, get confirmation. Yes. Confirmation they were working on getting him out of me, and which was good. And it kind of just evolved from there until after about 10, 15 minutes, I felt the release that he was gone. And I was able to say, hell yeah, that was a good experience.
My goodness, that's quite a story. Maybe you should write a book.
If I had time, I would finish my own book, Ron. You don't have time to barely breathe, let alone write right now. And I'm not Ron Felber. I'm not as talented with the words.
Oh, I'm sure you are. I'm sure he actually, Kurt Vonnegut said famously that writing is, 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration. It's really hard work. It's really hard work, and it really takes a lot of discipline to sort of take yourself out of circulation and just live in that world. Because if you don't live in that world, you're not going to write a good book.
Very true. Maybe one day I'll send you the Google Docs link over to my book.
Sure, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, and it'll. Who knows? Maybe it'll convince you to write it with me.
You never know. What's the theme? What's it about? Or maybe you don't want to talk about it. I don't know.
No, I'm not talking about it. I for the last number of years, I've been writing down highlighting my strangest experiences that I've had, and I've called it the end of my happily boring life.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes from my experiences to my encounters with the angel of death, to the paranormal experiences, to UFO experiences, to premonitions, to Sasquatch encounters. And since then, I've had a few encounters that I do have to put in there now, but we'll get to it one day. But this
actually sounds fascinating.
We got 2.5 minutes. We got some audience questions, Ron.
Sure.
Let's get right to it here. Let's start off with Travis, who is asking, do you feel writing about evil allows it through? Did you start to think a lot about the demonic?
I thought a lot about the spiritual world. And what I came to realize was that just like in real life here, this life, there are good people and bad people. And then beyond that, there are really good people and really bad people. And the spirit world is no different. And I've also come to realize that, your body is a shell. It's just sort of a carrier. It really has very little to do with existence. What has to do with existence is your consciousness, your soul, whatever you want to call it. But that's what's important. And I'm very familiar, with the fact that evil exists. As I mentioned, I transported hitmen and terrorists and just horrible people, and so I'm aware of that. But I'm also aware of the mystery of goodness. That there's a Mother Teresa out there. That there's a soldier that jumps on a hand grenade to save all of his platoon members and sacrifices himself. There are people that give selflessly to charities and work in soup kitchens and things like that. So I think that there's good and evil in this world, but it's sort of a mirror image of the real world, which is a spiritual one, with a battle going on moment to moment for the souls of human beings. That's what I think. And that's what this book has come to mean to me. That's what I come out of it with.
All right. Let's see how much time we have here. So maybe we can get to another one. Oh, we got about 1 minute to go here. So I'll leave the questions for the next half hour. But in this, though, did you at all at any point, 30-second answer here, did you at all at any point start having darker dreams or seeing things out of the corner of your eye?
Yeah, actually, very quickly, my wife did, not me, but she would wake me up and say, did you see that shadow cross the room in the middle of the night or the early morning? And I didn't have it, but she did. And we also had an experience with our door, garage door, which just kept opening, and we'd find it open, we'd close it, we'd lock it down, and we'd find it open again. This went on for 2-3 weeks. With 2 or 3 times a week, this would open up.
Wow. Ron Felber is here. We have until the top of the hour, his latest book, The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler. We return on Spaced Out Radio with audience questions right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Right on, Ron. Man, this is flying on by, my man.
Yeah, it really is.
Totally is. All right. Let's see where we are here. Well, there we go.
You know, my answers seem a little disconnected sometimes. You cut out occasionally, like in the middle of a question, and I just miss 3 seconds of it or 5 seconds of it. Then I go, oh, well.
Well, you're doing great. You're holding it together. Like,
I'm doing my best. But no, it's fun, and the questions are great, and I love talking about this particular book. So
I don't blame you. What's up next for you?
I don't know. I'm really, for the first time, I'm really, moving into promotion of a particular book. This won this award. I feel like it's really a thing that should be a film, and I've really been spending my time promoting this. I'm looking for another topic for a book, and we'll see. Usually, like I said, I'm lucky enough that it comes along. I don't have to look for it.
Are you going to go more into the paranormal aspect again? Since you,
I might
having success with that.
I might. We'll see. I actually was retrogressed myself about 3 weeks ago.
I'm sorry?
I was retrogressed, hypnotically retrogressed about 3 weeks ago. I had a dream, and it's a bit of a story about a UFO and going onto a spacecraft. This was about 30 years ago. And it was very, very vivid to me and stuck with me for a long, long time. Then I met the Hesses and did Mojave Incident, which, of course, was about alien abduction. Then I went to the doctor. I had a knee operation, 10 years ago. And I went more recently because my knee was bothering me. And he took an x-ray and said I had a piece of metal lodged under my kneecap. And he goes, I have no idea how that got there. Maybe a clip from the last surgery or a surgical tool broke, a tip of a scalpel or something, which seemed pretty unlikely. But then I watched the show on alien abduction, and this actually, I think it was a major or something in the Air Force, talked about an alien abduction. And what do you think he showed? An x-ray of his knee with a silver arrow tip almost in it. So I got retrogressed for a couple of hours in Tampa, Florida. And I have the transcript, so I might do something with that.
You got aliens, Ron?
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm going to get an x-ray retaken. And if it's still there, I'm going to have it removed. And I'll go back and get retrogressed again. So that could be a story.
Well, we're going to be there for sure, man, when you're ready to release that.
Yeah. I got a title. I'd call it Truth.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, just truth.
I don't blame you. Is it more different for you to write your own story than to write somebody else's?
I've never really written my own story. I write others, other people's stories. El Dottore, The Double Life of a Mafia Doctor, was a sort of a memoir that I wrote for this doctor about his experiences. The Hesses, of course, were, I talked about their case history. The Unwelcomed is somebody else's case history. So I've never written a book about or anything about myself. It's always a first, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got just over a minute to go here, my man.
Sure.
All right.
So when do you think this will post on YouTube or whatever? The different places.
About 12:30 Pacific.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow. That's quick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how quick that is.
It is. It's amazing.
Yeah. Second here. We got about 40 seconds, 45 seconds.
All right.
Big thank you tonight to Backspin, Kira, and Joe for the amazing super chats. Absolutely love the love and support of SOR. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out. And we'll try and fit in as many questions to Ron here in the next half hour, everybody. We got about 7 seconds, Ron.
Sure, no problem.
Here we go. Here we go, the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We very much appreciate you tuning us on in for another night of incredible stories. Author Ron Felber will join us momentarily once again as we have until the top of the hour. I do want to remind each and every one of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're on every major podcast network as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Don't forget our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Yeah, it's all at spacedoutradio.com. RonFelber.com is the website for the book, The Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler. And author Ron Felber is with us once again. Ron, we got a bunch of audience questions here for you. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Polly is asking, what was the diagnosis that they decided exorcism and not schizophrenia?
Yeah. As a real war of philosophies that went on and covered in detail in the book between Richard Hodgson and Leonora Piper, who were spiritualists, and Dr. Morton Prince and George Waterman, who were materialists, meaning they didn't believe in the spirit world at all. And then in the middle was the esteemed William James, who was incredibly famous and the father of modern psychiatry in the United States. So it sort of raged between them. And Prince, like they say, who wins the war is who tells the history. So Prince was the writer and the primary doctor. And so he wrote the book, Dissociation of a Personality, and decided it was dissociation, which is a splitting of a personality, like pretended personality is like a mirror. It shatters, and there are pieces of it, of that personality. In the case of Clara Fowler, who was a saintly soul, the other part was a demonic presence. And so Prince said that this related to her childhood experiences and a catastrophic trauma, two catastrophic traumas that happened in the course of her life, and left the real Clara Fowler as a kind of phantom. The Clara Fowler you see every day as a kind of phantom, the demon as a kind of phantom, and underneath, submerged, was the real Clara Fowler. That was Prince's take. The others thought it was a legitimate case of demonic possession, and probably the most documented case of its kind ever recorded.
All right, let's continue on. Let's go to Sierra. Doesn't this demon who is trying to kill Clara interfere with her free will?
That's really a good theological question, because we're told that free will is a gift, and one chooses their fate. But I would say, I would look at it this way: you may have free will, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get a virus. You may have free will, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to, get cancer. There are forces that override free will. Now, what you do have free will about is how you react to those things. And the demonic possession is really an infestation of a spirit, maybe somebody that's dead, been dead and unsettled, or Satan himself, or one of the legion that Christ talks about in the Bible. So it doesn't really interfere with free will, because at the end of the day, it's not a choice. Free will says you can go this way and that way. Ultimately, and I believe this, as I mentioned before, there's a battle going on moment to moment for the souls of human beings, a demonic presence, an angelic presence, God, the devil. And the choice you have is which direction you go. And you go in that direction with the acts you perform each and every day. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get cancer. It doesn't mean that you won't get an ulcer. It doesn't mean that you won't have an earache. Those things are not about free will. What is about free will is how you react to those things and what you do about it.
All right, let's get to another question here from Jorgensen. Are evil entities on continuously searching for new hosts?
Yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's a great dialogue where the demon says, why do I bother with somebody like Clara Fowler? It's my job. We fight for these souls, and we record our victories. And most are just people you'll never know. But occasionally we run across a Jack the Ripper or an H.H. Holmes or a Ted Bundy, and we literally become them. They become demonic, prowling the earth as an evil entity infested by a demon. Yes, is the answer.
Let's move on.
Moment to moment, as a matter of fact.
Who are these demons, and where do they come from, and why?
Well, this is a theological question, and I don't really feel like getting too far into the theological point of view, but this I will tell you. I mean, according to the Bible and according to most Christian faith, I don't know every denomination, but that there are fallen angels. That basically pride. That Lucifer was created by pride. He believed he was Lucifer. He was the luminous angel. He was the king of angels, and he contested the power of God, and because of free will, by the way, and the fact that God doesn't want to interfere with the lives of humans and the choices they make, except in rare occasions, Lucifer became a fallen angel, and really was and is at war. Norman Mailer has such a good quote. I can read this. It's at the last page of the book. The devil might be a presence from another universe that wishes to take over our universe. We may be fighting an implacable enemy out there, and the devil might be the agent of that implacable enemy, with God as the tired general fighting that war with his own agents of hope. And so I think what Mailer alludes to, which is very interesting, particularly in light of alien abduction, UFOs and whatnot, is that, again, there is a battle that goes on moment to moment for the souls of human beings.
All right, let's go over to Major Lee here, who is asking, are your books available on audiobook format?
Yes. Yeah, I have two books that are on audiobook. One is called Il Dottore, which the double life of a Mafia Doctor, which was converted into it's an audiobook and a regular book, but it became a Fox primetime television series called The Mob Doctor. And of course, The Unwelcomed is now in audiobook format and available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, etc.
All right, let's continue on here. Let's go next to Polly. We got a bunch of questions from her. Polly wants to know, what's the difference between missing time in the ET issue and missing time when you were possessed?
So it's a very good question. And the answer, at least from my point of view, this is obviously speculation, is there is no difference. That at the end of the day, and I was watching Tucker Carlson the other night on Joe Rogan, and he had some interesting things to say about exactly that. That the connection between the connection between alien abduction and aliens, etc., and demonic possession. And here's what he says. If they are spiritual beings, these are aliens, which I believe they are, it's binary. They're either team good or team bad. They're supernatural because they're beyond nature as we understand it. These are an advanced race of beings from somewhere else, but the template that every society before us has used is a spiritual one. There is a whole world out there, he says, that acts on people, a spiritual world that's acting on us good and bad all the time. Interesting enough, that was from a couple of weeks ago, maybe on Joe Rogan. Here's what Richard Hodgson, one of the members of Prince's team studying Clara Fowler, said. The one fact of demonic possession so remarkable in our time is the power these hostile beings exert among men and what they may, in far more subtle and less obvious ways, do to corrupt us. And so I think there's a tremendous link between missing time as an ET issue and missing time in demonic possession.
All right, let's go back to Paulie here. Do possessions change according to religions in your research?
I no, I don't think so. I think the Jewish faith has talks about demonic possession. The Muslim faith talks about demonic possession. Almost every religion, we sort of invented, and by that I mean the Western world sort of invented a secular technology-based religion, almost. With robots and robotics and the rest, technology. But prior to, let's say, the atom bomb, prior to that, everybody, almost every civilization, believed in the spiritual world. And of course, Christians believe in angels and devils and God, all interdimensional beings, just another description, interdimensional beings. Angels are interdimensional beings. Devils are interdimensional beings. God is an interdimensional being, or a supreme being. I don't think it changes, no. And as a matter of fact, it's such a great line that Dawn has in the transcripts from her retrogressive hypnotic session. They ask her, what is this all about? And she said that these entities are sent by a supreme being. And the hypnotist says, the doctor says, are you talking about like a president? She goes, no, I'm talking about a God. And then he goes on and says, well, tell us more about this. What is this? What is that? And she just quips, read the Bible. So do possessions change according to religions? Fundamentally, no.
Let's go to Jennifer. What are the similarities you spoke of between ET abductions and demonic possession?
Sure. In both cases, and I can't talk about every case of alien abduction, but John Mack, who was the head of the psychiatry department at Harvard University, wrote a book. It was called Abduction. And in Abduction, he studied hundreds, 500, that kind of number, cases of alien abduction. And this is a line that struck me. They are spirit beings come to us from another dimension. He doesn't talk about extraterrestrials. He talks about spirit beings from another dimension. Steve Hess talks about that they were physical, but became spiritual and can change this way or that. And that they've been here since the beginning of time. So, the similarities, in both cases, there's always the odor of sulfur, whether it's an alien abduction or whether it's a demonic possession. In both cases, there's a demonic force, whether it's experimenting on them, and doing horrible things, which never leave somebody feeling better. It's always a pretty negative and horrible experience. Certainly the Hesses were. And the other thing is that in both cases, whether it's Clara Fowler, who has visitations from the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ, or the Hesses, who in their darkest moment, when they thought they were in hell and having heart attacks, an angelic presence appeared, and they called it their comforter and said, things will be all right. Don't worry. You will survive this. So what I see is good and evil, and what I see are some physical connections, meaning the smell, that sort of thing. But I also see, again, this demonic force and then a rescue. I've been told, I watched a program recently, I can't tell you, it was on YouTube, and the researcher said that there were at least 400 instances of alien abduction where the abductions were thwarted or stopped by injecting the name of Christ or something along those lines.
Ron Felber is here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's go to Evan here, who is asking, this is for me, Dave. What was it like? What was being possessed by a demon like? Dave, it was a good experience. I don't think it was demonic. I think it was just an angry spirit. That's the feeling I got from it. Let's go to Stone here. Ron, do you do blessings when feeling the darker set creeping in?
Do you mean, do I pray? I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Sure. I pray and I repent.
Did you find yourself becoming more spiritual after this?
Absolutely. I really had little interest. I can't say that I'm terribly religious, but I agree with the major tenets of most faiths. And the major tenets, when you strip away, the nomenclature, when you strip that away, the basics and the fundamentals are very, very similar, and something I can agree with. Even if you take a book like Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, he really has exactly that same philosophy about the nature of good and evil, and yeah, I think that, as you found out, Dave, that invoking a deity or whatever into the equation is helpful.
All right, let's move on here. And let's go to Blake. Do you think demons can give verbal omens? I believe I had one for my brother's death. What's your thoughts, Ron?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, certainly. I think that they're, what Dr. Prince would describe as auditory hallucinations, where people sort of hear voices or whatever, and it can be a sign of mental illness if you're walking around and you have a partner that's invisible to everyone else. I guess that may be a problem. But auditory omens, verbal omens, sure. Yeah, yes.
All right, we got about 5.5 minutes to go with you tonight, Ron. Wow, this is just flying by. I can't believe how quickly this is gone. Let's go over to President Zaddy for a pair of questions. Do you think abductions are demonic and the demon is getting people to accept or want to be abducted again so it can inhabit their body due to the agreement of ritual or abduction?
You think abductions are demonic? Yes. And the demon is getting people to accept or want to be abducted again so it can inhabit their body. It's an intricate question. And I can say that I think abductions are demonic in most cases. I can say that that they inhabit the body with or without the agreement of the other party. As to whether that people want to be abducted again, at least in what I've read and what I've researched and been very familiar with, studied and examined, most people that are abducted it's not a pleasant experience. They have nightmares of examinations. They don't come away with a positive feeling where they say, "Oh, this is so great, I want to do it again." That isn't my understanding, but I think you'd have to ask somebody individually, what their motives are and what their feelings are about multiple abductions.
And one more here from our good friend President Zaddy. Is sin a portal to the demonic? And is the rise of possessions due to the world persecuting the person who calls sin out and not the sinner? Is the devil preparing for the world or the world for his arrival?
That's another great question. And first of all, I think sin is a portal to the demonic. I think that's true. Again, it's a matter of degree, but I think people could just leave themselves totally open and say, for power or for money or for whatever it might be, I'm willing to do anything. Come get me. I think that is a portal. There is apparently a rise in possessions, and I think that's witnessed just by the fact that, again, that the Catholic Church, I can't speak for others, has over 150 trained exorcists that report directly to the Vatican, which is pretty wild, I think. And that's happened over the last 10 years or so. Dawn Hess is asked by the psychiatrist when she's retrogressed, when will this communion, let's call it, happen? And she says, I don't know. She says, will it be in my lifetime? She says, well, how long will you live? He says, will it be in my children's lifetime? And she answers, it will be in your children's lifetime.
Let's sneak in one more question here, 2 minutes to go from Paramarv. If abductions are demonic, why would those demons be helping the abductee in many cases by fixing physical ailments?
Well, there's two answers to that. I know of a case like that I'm familiar with. Generally speaking, that's not the case. And if you're looking for a sort of theological explanation, Satan is called the great deceiver. And just because, somebody, let's say, gives you money doesn't mean they have your best interest at heart.
Not always the case. Unless the aliens are us from a different timeline.
Yeah. Interdimensional, right? And by the way, David Grush, in testifying before Congress, I remember Grush talked about recovery programs and whatnot. He'd never referred to them as extraterrestrials. He always referred to them as interdimensional entities or non-human entities, which I found interesting.
I can see that. I can totally see that. All right, my friend, we got just under a minute to go with you tonight, and it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. And the fact that you give us a call when you've written another book and you're like, hey, man, time for me to come back on. I'm always good with that, Ron. Anytime in the future you get a new book out, you make sure you give us a call because I know our audience loves you. Tell our audience where they can find your books and more on you.
Yeah, sure. The Unwelcomed, the Curious Case of Clara Fowler, can be purchased as a book, as an audio book or an ebook, and it's available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble, Thrift Books, online or in bookstores. So it's very accessible. And I can tell you this: it won Best Book among an entries of almost 6,000. People, the reviews have been really good. People really get something out of this book and enjoy the read.
Ron Felber, everybody. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio for Hour 3, Steve Stockton from Tales Untold. Lee Strauss fills in for Jackie Harmon on the Encrypted Report. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, my man. Thank you.
It's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
So
Hold
I'm
on.
gonna have a sandwich and go to bed. It's
Hold on.
2 in the morning.
Happy birthday to you.
I hope you're feeling better.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday, Ronnie Felber. Happy birthday to you.
You're the first. You're the first to say it. So hey, thanks a lot, Dave. It was always a pleasure. A lot of fun.
Take care, my man.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Ron Felber, everybody. Birthday boy, Ron Felber. That's awesome. Awesome. I'll be right back, everybody. Hi, Bombshell Bomber. How are you? Just so you all know, I'm going to probably, after the show ends, I'm going to cut this feed pretty quick. I am like, my ear is killing me. And I need to go address this. So I'll make it through this next hour and we'll get through. Not an issue. All right, here we go, everybody. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in, wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We've got an exciting hour coming up for you here momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. Yeah, we appreciate you coming on in and making us your nightly entertainment before you go to bed. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Speaking of the Space Travelers Club, the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ivres. Ivres is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. It's that time of the night we say hello to Steve Stockton, who comes in with another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. I never should have gone hiking alone in that state park. I thought I knew those trails like the back of my hand. I've been exploring them since I was a kid, but nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered that day. It started off like any other solo hike. I parked my car at the trailhead, double-checked that I had plenty of water and snacks, and set off into the tranquil peace of the woods. The sun shone through the towering redwood as birds chirped overhead. I breathed in the fresh, piney air, feeling totally at ease and at peace. About 2 miles in, though, I reached a fork in the trail that I'd never noticed before. Puzzled, I pulled out my trail map, but this diverging path wasn't shown. Strange, I thought. But, against my better judgment, I decided to see where this mysterious trail led. This narrow path was more overgrown, clearly not well traveled like the main trails. Low-hanging branches scraped my face as I pushed through. An eerie silence settled over the forest, usual bird calls replaced by an unsettling stillness. Then the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Something felt very wrong. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the trees, echoing off the distant hills. My heart nearly stopped. It sounded like a person shrieking in terror or pain. Then another horrific wail joined the first, and another. This unholy chorus grew louder, to the point that it sounded almost inhuman, like injured animals crying out. Pure dread washed over me in waves. I spun around to run back the way I came, but froze in my tracks. There, blocking the path behind me, stood 3 emaciated human-like figures, barely clothed in tattered rags. Their skin was caked in dirt and what looked like blood, and they crouched down like wild animals. Most unnerving of all, though, their eyes were totally dark and empty, devoid of any humanity. They stared right at me, their lips curling back to reveal jagged, blackened teeth. Low, guttural snarls escaped their throats. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Sheer terror glued me in place as they slowly crept forward, their malevolent, dark eyes locked on mine. A putrid stench of decay hit my nostrils, caused me to gag. I watched in a petrified disbelief as one stretched out a gnarled hand tipped with ragged nails, reaching for me, its gruesome face splitting into an insane grin. At last, my paralysis broke and I bolted, crashing wildly through the brush, not caring where I was going as long as it was far away from those feral abominations. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears and the diminished shrieks of those horrors giving chase close behind me. Thorny branches tore at my skin and clothes, but I didn't care. I didn't even slow down. By some miracle, I burst out onto one of the main trails and sprinted the remaining distance back to the trailhead in record time, not once looking behind me. I jumped in my car, slammed the locks down, and sped out of there like a bat out of hell. Only once I reached the safety of the main road did I finally dare to glance in my rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty, no sign of any ferals. What I saw in those woods that day still haunts me. The Park Service claims they've never had any reports of feral people living in the state park. They say I must have imagined it or mistaken normal hikers for something else. But I know what I saw. Those things, they weren't human. Not anymore. Their predatory shrieks and dead, soulless eyes are seared into my mind. I did some digging and found reports buried in obscure corners of the internet from hikers who encountered something similar in state and national parks across California. Yes, feral humans, more animal than man, stalking the deepest reaches of the wilderness. Now, these stories are quickly dismissed as hoaxes or hallucinations, but me, I know the truth. Those creatures, they're out there, waiting. I've never gone hiking again, and I never will. Because now I know we're not the only ones wandering those woods.
All right. Thank you to Steve Stockton from Tales Untold on YouTube for another great story just like that. If you want more, head on over to his channel, youtube.com/Among the Missing, and enjoy yourself. There's a lot of cool stuff on his channel. From the missing to the mysterious, Lee Strauss filling in for Jackie Harmon on the Cryptid Report. Lee Strauss filling in for Jackie Harmon, who for some reason lost all of her internet connection today and it won't be back on until tomorrow. Lee, thank you for being here, my man. Very much appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I'm happy to be here. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, she's pretty upset about not being able to be on. Her internet's been in and out. Apparently, there's been some construction nearby her house, and they must have dug up a cable line or something like that. And so it's been really intermittent.
Oh, isn't
They're
that
trying
nice?
to repair it. Yeah.
Isn't that nice? I love when that. Really love when that happens. But the good part is we have you here, and that's always good. And for people who don't know, Lee is a size large who wears size small shirts to make his pecs and delts and biceps look bigger. Just the way he is. We learned that at the fan party in Reno, which was a lot of fun. Good to have you here.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here. And there's 2 reports here in Washington of Bigfoot lately, and I'd like to hit on those today if we could, Dave.
Oh, well, let's get right to them. Give it to us.
Great. So alongside this road called Little Rock Road near Little Rock, Washington, there was a couple that were picking cans up alongside the road on either side of the road. As they were going down, they kept hearing this noise off in the brush, and it sounded like rustling as they kept going down the road, and they kept looking up the hill and wondering what the heck is kind of going on up there, and kind of getting a little nervous because whatever this thing was pacing them. They could tell, and they kept going, maybe a half a mile or whatever the case may be, and they kept hearing it and hearing it. And all of a sudden, out ahead of them, they saw this black shadow emerge from this hillside that was up above them. It's actually an old railroad grade up there. And they just kind of stopped in their tracks, and were just watching this thing. And this thing was close enough, apparently, that this one lady did see like the color of its eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, as I'm reading this story, I'm like, if you were close enough to see the color of its eyes, I think that would be an absolute terrifying event, in your life, to be able to see something like that and be that close to something that they claim is 9 feet tall. I've had a couple experiences myself, never seen one in the flesh, but have had them pace me through the forest as I'm hiking along. And I'll tell you what, it's not a good feeling when something like that is going on. Especially, as large as they are and as much, brush as they can displace as they're going through the woods. But to be able to see the color of its eyes is amazing.
Yeah. What color were those eyes?
Amber.
Oh.
Amber. Apparently it was a sunny day, so maybe if the Bigfoot was getting some sunlight directly in the eyes, you'd be able to see it. And they said it was a brownish reddish color, and just 9 feet tall. And they just were like, holy crud, and that lady wanted to take off, like, I'm done, I don't want to be here. The guy that was on the other side of the road from her was like, well, I still want to, continue on after this creature took off and left. And she was like adamant, like, no, I don't want to be around here. I want to get, and I want to go. I don't want to be anywhere on this road right now. But yeah.
Did they feel a lot of fear from having this close encounter, or were they just startled to the fact that it gave them fear?
I think from the lady, I do get a sense that there was something where she caught fear from the creature, and the gentleman across the road did not as much as she did. She was in a closer proximity to the creature than he was. So I feel that sometimes they can exude that, maybe through infrasound, and she must have.
It almost sounds, by the story you read there, that she was being stalked by this creature.
What they said later on, as they were getting interviewed, is that they felt like it was interested in what they were doing alongside the road, because I'm sure, if Bigfoot's been around that area, has just seen cars going by a lot, back and forth, but never seen people out alongside the road picking cans up or stuff like that. So I think generally the creature must have been interested in what they had going on. But yeah, probably still, at the same time, like, you're in my area and you need to leave, sort of thing.
Well, we do know, as you do, as being somebody who investigates this stuff, we do know that Sasquatch seems to be a very, very curious type creature, and that it really seems to have an ability to want to sneak up and see what's going on and see what people are doing. And, whether it's out of curiosity, whether it's out of habit, whether it's out of, defense for its area. We really don't know, but there does seem to be a lot of curiosity when it comes to this creature. And so, I mean, we shouldn't be too surprised that this is actually happening, but it is.
Yeah, it is. Just the fact that people have had that happen to them, lots of different people. It seems like the animal is, or the creature is, curious about what we have going on, right? And especially, if we're cleaning up what maybe they would consider trash in the woods or that sort of thing. I mean, that's pretty interesting and maybe, a good thing as far as they would view it. I don't know.
Was this lady, I mean, pardon me, because I am having troubles hearing tonight. How close did this creature get to her when she saw it?
She said it was about 25 yards away or so when it popped out of the brush.
That's not far, man.
No, it's not.
That's like 5-6 steps for a creature that size.
Oh yeah, for a creature that's that big, 9 foot tall creature, absolutely.
My goodness. But she didn't feel threatened by it at any time.
She did. I scared her tremendously.
Well, I can understand the fear, but there's difference between us having human fear over something like that and the creature giving us a fair warning to get the hell out of Dodge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They didn't say that there was any vocalizations made. So it seemed to be more curious, but it definitely did scare the bejesus out of her. So yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting indeed. I could just imagine.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing that I took of note with this sighting and the next one that I'm going to talk about was the fact that there's a old railroad grade right up on top of this little ridge line above the road where they just talked about this old railroad line. So the thought, or railroad grade, the thought is that they're using this to traverse long distances. If it's clear of brush and there's very little human activity going on in these places like that, like the railroad grade, and then also power lines as well. They can get far, they can get down a long way in a clear area like that, a clear line or a clear run with very little human activity.
And the second story you have?
So the second story I have was, this is down actually not too far away from this other one in Centralia, Washington. So you're looking at maybe a distance of 30 miles or 30 to 40 miles from the other sighting. And these two gentlemen were riding their motorcycles into this clear cut on an old logging road, and they saw across the ravine over here at another clear cut area a shadow. So they had stopped their bikes and they were taking kind of a little break, a little lunch. They were eating something, and all of a sudden this shadow or this creature pops out of the wood line. Now that wood line, also where the clear cut is, also intersects with the power lines that run across the hill. And so they're watching this shadow, not believing what they're seeing. They estimate this creature to be between 8 and 10 feet tall. And it's booking it, and they watch it run out of that wood line to the next wood line alongside this power line run. And they're watching for about 30 seconds, and this thing is cooking. They said, wow, that thing could have been going almost 30 miles an hour. It was just moving across there. But for like 30 seconds, they watched this thing, move. And they described it as a reddish brown color as well. This creature was. So
30 seconds, that's actually quite a long sighting for many people.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. And to see it move, and they said it was so agile, just trucking through there like, not a care in the world, just without tripping or looking like it was struggling to run. They said it was just amazing to watch.
See, and for a lot of people, they would say, well, how do you know that wasn't a human in some sort of costume?
Well, you can't. I mean, to think of it, a human in a costume not being able to see very well and whatnot, and to be that fluid as it's running through the brush or running through, old cut timber area, we would be on our face in an instant. I mean, to see through, a mask or whatever, we'd be on the ground. A couple steps and we'd be done.
I fully agree with you. I mean, and that's the whole purpose of this, like everybody says, well, the skeptics will say, oh, it's just people playing games. When you're in the middle of a forest where there's not a lot of people and you come across something like this, there's not somebody waiting there to make fun of people.
Yeah.
There just isn't. I look at areas where I explore, you explore all over the wilderness of Washington State. Dude, there's been times, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. There's been times where you've gone up some of these mountain logging roads to the tops of mountains and every side trail that goes through it, and you haven't even seen a vehicle.
That's correct. That's so correct. Not seen nor heard or anything like that. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. So for people to sit there and say that you have these people running around the wilderness who are trying to be goofballs and wear these gorilla suits running around the forest. It is such a lame, cheap excuse. It's not worth the copper a penny is printed on.
Yeah, that's the case. I mean, why do it? The chances of a person seeing you, are infinitesimally small, right? So yeah, that doesn't even make sense to me. I was talking about being shadowed or something following me through the woods. I'm on a trail that's kind of a well-used trail, right? But why would you just be off the trail in the brush, running yourself through the brush, in through nettles and all kinds of just nasty stuff to keep pace with somebody? It doesn't make sense for that sort of thing to happen, especially if you're following somebody for a half a mile, through the brush, watching what they're doing.
Exactly. Like I look at some of the areas that we travel in. You might see one set of tire tracks that's relatively fresh over the last few days, but you're not seeing, convoys of 4x4s or ATVs going through these areas. I mean, to me, it's people who've never spent time out of in the wilderness who are the ones making these declarations. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's the way I feel about it. We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, they just want to throw it up and out there to everybody that they're the authority. Well, have you been to Washington State? Have you been to Oregon? Have you been up into, British Columbia, where the woods are so thick you can't see 50 feet?
That's right. Lee Strauss filling in for Jackie Harmon here on Spaced Out Radio. It's a cryptid report. We'll be right back.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, brother, we're clear.
Yeah. So I've got we could go into some personal stories too, other things that I've encountered out there.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some of those.
I'm sorry, man. I know you're hurting.
Oh, dude. I gotta tell you, if you haven't had an earache since you were a kid, you really forget the pain that these things are, man.
Yeah. I had a real bad one when I was about 22, and I used a hair dryer to try to soften up the liquid in my ear, and it actually ended up rupturing my eardrum.
Ouch. Ouch.
Mm-hmm. After the pain, though, there was relief.
Yeah, this totally sucks.
I feel sorry for you, man. It's nothing to that you want to deal with. That's for sure. It's a lot of pain. I mean, so many nerves in there.
Yes, Christine, I am under doctor's care.
Good.
Yeah. So. Vanessa, I took last night off and I felt really good at my daytime job today. I came home, had a nap, and I was feeling really good. But I think the amount of talking that I've done has aggravated it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, we are definitely looking forward to doing some Bigfooting up here in Washington State next weekend.
Yeah, I wish I could be there for you, man.
Oh, that would be a blast. That'd be a blast. Down here at Mount Adams. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
When does Jackie arrive?
Say again?
When does Jackie arrive?
She gets in on Friday night. So
nice.
We'll go have some dinner and then in the morning we'll head out, head down south and find a good place to set up. We'll be dealing with a little bit of weather on Saturday morning where we're headed, and then it should clear up for us. And 3 nights out there will be a blast.
Are you camping out there?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
I've got one of those really cool tents that is suspended from 3 trees. It's called a tensile. So,
yeah. Let's see here. We got about 2 minutes, bud.
Oh, plenty time. But yeah, we can't wait for that to set up in a good spot where we can see the mountain, at night, and also do like Bigfooting during the day and set up some trail cameras and some other stuff and, wood knocks and maybe some call blasting and that sort of thing. So it'll be a great time.
It's going to be fun, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd definitely like to, invite other people like Merle. I'd love to have him along too for this sort of thing.
Oh, Merle. We love the Merle around here.
Absolutely.
All right.
He's
so Lee, I'm just going to once we're done tonight, I hate not to sound rude, but you could just log off because as soon as I'm done the show tonight, I'm logging out. I got to stop talking.
Yep, I hear you. I totally understand.
I appreciate you filling in for Jackie, though.
No worries.
Yeah, I got to try and bang this out as quickly as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Right into the shower I go.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be good. Going to be good. All right, buddy. We got 15 seconds. Thank you, Backspin, Kira, and Joe for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, Sweet Robbie G tomorrow night, filling in for me while I am watching my daughter grab her college degree, which I'm looking forward to. So we'll see you tomorrow. Here we go, the final half hour. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We very much appreciate you tuning us on in this great planet. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you know our archives are always free. You can get them at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We continue on with the Cryptid Report. Lee Strauss is here filling in for Jackie Harmon, who had some construction workers dig up her internet line and break them, so she's hoping to have it back online for the next time she's on. Lee, welcome back, my man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Listening to these cases that you read from Washington State right before we took the break here, I mean, close encounters don't happen very often. Long sightings don't happen very often. Do you think there's something special about those two cases?
Well, they're definitely different. I mean, you've got one instance where you've got a Sasquatch watching people pick up, debris alongside the road, cans, and then in the other one, I don't even think the Bigfoot knew that he was being watched. The one commonality that they have is that they were near pathways through the forest, whether it be the railroad grade or the power lines. And that brings up a thought for me, because I've been on railroad grades quite often, and there was an instance that I had on a railroad grade. And so I wanted to bring that up and talk about that a little bit, because what happened in my situation was out of Skycomish, Washington. There's a river called the Foss River, and that's just east of Skycomish, Washington. And it's deep, dark, and thick up there, as you can probably imagine. And I walked along this railroad grade on a trail that leads to what's called the Necklace Lake Valley. This trail follows this railroad grade for probably about 1.5 miles, and then just keeps running up the valley until it almost goes vertical up to the higher area. But one night, I was hiking down this trail, set up my camp because I was going to head out in the morning, and picked up all my gear and stuff super early in the morning, just as light was just starting to come up. So it must have been like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And I was heading out on this railroad grade. And all of a sudden, these rocks that were the size of softballs and bigger, like a melon, were smacking into trees above me, near me, and in front of me, smacking into the trees, and then down on the railroad grade and down over in the embankment, down to where this marshy area was. And there must have been 5 or 6, maybe 7 of these big rocks that they had to be thrown. They weren't sharp from an avalanche, and the grade up the hill is sloped kind of like at a 35-degree angle, so it's not super steep. But they were smacking into trees, they were hitting the railroad grade, they were bouncing down into that marshy area, and I was like, what the heck was going on? And I didn't have the presence of mind at the moment to put 2 and 2 together, like this must have been a Sasquatch. I thought, well, maybe it's human beings throwing these rocks. They were roundish rocks. They weren't necessarily sharp rocks. And it wasn't till I got past that spot that I thought, like, what the heck? Humans can't throw rocks like that. Those are freaking huge rocks. And they were, and I'm looking up the hill. I can't see anything but the woods. I yelled, hey, stop. I'm walking down here, and it ceased once I yelled up the hill. And I get, I don't know, maybe 20 feet past that location, 50 feet past that location. And it occurred to me that couldn't have been human beings. There's no way. So thinking about that and the fact that people find deer skulls crushed, thinking about, where I've seen pictures with deer heads that look like they've been turned into corkscrew, their necks been turned into corkscrew. And I think if that thing wanted to kill me and hit me in the head with a rock, it could have easily done it. And I would have been done. No problem. I would have been out. So there's a little bit of fear there when I go out and do this sort of thing, when I go out and investigate. However, most, if not all, are things that happen to people have been like bluff charges and not necessarily something that was trying to actually, kill someone. It's more about, just trying to get them out of their area. One of the thoughts that I had, Dave, was they wanted me out of there because they could come across that railroad grade and right down into that marshy area and grab tubers or whatever. Maybe they were, heading down there to get some food or whatever. And I was just in the way.
Yeah. And if you don't know their trail system or even know that they're there, you're not going to know.
Exactly. You're not going to know, I'm in your home and, why am I in your home? I shouldn't be necessarily. So I can understand their thought process a little bit of just trying to scare people to get them out of their areas.
When you are in their area and you had those rocks being thrown at you, what size pebbles were they?
Well, generally, I've heard different stories from different people, but the rocks that were being thrown were softball to melon size. And if it was a small rocks, I probably wouldn't have cared, like big deal, right? But something that size, hitting the railroad grade and bouncing off the railroad grade and smacking into the side of trees. I mean, that's a threat display as far as I'm concerned. They wanted me the hell out of there. It wasn't fun and games for them. And thinking about, a rock this almost the size of my head hitting me in the head or hitting me anywhere for that matter could have done some real damage.
Were they close?
Well, as far as I could tell, they must have been up, maybe 100, 200 feet, 100 to 200 feet up the hillside.
No, but I'm saying, were they close to hitting you?
There was a couple that were pretty close. Maybe 20 feet, maybe 15 feet close to me. Yeah. Close enough. If one had ricocheted off the tree just right, it would have got me.
Were they thrown like a baseball, or were they more lobbed at you like we hear so much of?
Yeah, I would definitely say they were lobbed. It seems to me that if they wanted to hit me, they would have easily done it. Easily taken me out. No problem. But they were lobbed.
Wow. I've only ever had one rock thrown at me. One rock. And it was at our original gifting site that we hadn't had action there in a long time. This is going back a couple of years ago, prior to the forest fires of 2021 up here. And it was just one little ching off the rocks on the ground. And that was it. We didn't see it. Our backs were turned to it. We didn't see where the rock went, what kind of rock it was. We just know what happened.
Right.
You know? And sometimes that's all they give you. Sometimes that's all you get. You know?
Yeah.
And you don't know whether they're doing it as a, hey, get the hell out of here, or hey, I'm here, just letting you know what's going on.
Yeah. They just wanted to see your reaction, most likely.
Yeah. What do you think the purpose of the rock throwing is?
Well, sometimes, in my case, it's obviously, we don't want you in our area. And in case like yours, they're probably interested in what your reaction is going to be. You probably got a more welcoming kind of a hello rock than what I was getting. So, yeah, I would have definitely rather have had that than what I had gotten.
Is that the first time that had happened to you?
As far as rocks being thrown, yes. I did have another incident where I was with my partner Ander when we were doing up a Skywatch up at Mount Baker, and that was a completely different situation. It wasn't anything being thrown at us, but we could tell that something was being dragged towards us.
Explain that.
So there's obviously another logging road that went up the side of this mountain near Mount Baker, above Baker Lake. And we were set up, this was probably around 12:30 at night or whatever. And we could hear this dragging on the logging road below us. Like, what is that noise? It sounded like gravel being just, as something's dragging something across gravel. And then as it started to come up the hill towards our position, you could hear, the branches snapping and cracking. And as it started to get closer, we could hear this kind of this low noise as it's coming closer to our position. And I had a speaker, like a Bluetooth speaker out, and we would play flute music and that sort of thing when we're doing our investigations, Native American music and whatnot. And so we turned that speaker on as loud as we could to try to frighten whatever it was. And then we'd turn it down to listen, to hear. And we would still hear that noise being drugged, whatever that was, being drugged up towards us. Now, we don't know what was being drugged. It just sounded like that, as whatever it is coming up the hill towards us. And it didn't care whether or not we had music playing or loud music or anything like that. So again, I'm thinking that all of that commotion, it was there to try to scare us away or to scare us out of that area. And we promptly packed up our stuff and left, because that was terrifying.
When you're out there where you are in the deep Washington wilderness, you do really have to respect the creatures and cryptids around you. A lot of people, I think, when they go into the forest, they make camp and they're kind of like, well, this is where I'm staying and all the animals can piss off, but we tend to forget that this is their territory. This might be part of their feeding ground. This might be part of their way to get back to their den or their hut or whatever it may be that they have going for them for their own protection. So I mean, what precautions do you take to make sure that not only you're safe, but you're not in a dangerous area?
Well, I've learned, I take apples now whenever I go, and I'll gift, and I kind of put that out there like, hey, I'm in your space and I realize that, and I'm only going to be here for so long. I'm going to bring a gift and give a gift to you. That's what I've started doing in the last, I would say, 2 years. So now it's okay, I realize I'm in your area, and I'm just here to, investigate whatever the case may be, but I am giving you a gift to be here, sort of thing. That's my whole thought process.
And how has that gone?
I haven't had any issues since I've started doing that.
Are the apples usually gone by the time you're
By the time I leave? Sometimes no. Most of the time I would say they're not gone. And I've, in the past I've put up trail cameras to view the apple pile, and I've kind of thought, what, that's not even, because I haven't ever caught anything, but the apples have been gone in the past. So I kind of decided, what? I'm not going to film the apple pile or the gifting spot. I'm just going to go do it and just let it be what it is. So I'm not trying to trick them. I'm not trying to, that's not my intent anymore, to try to capture them on film taking a gift.
Right. And I think that's a convenience thing too, to show respect.
Yes, exactly. That's my whole thought behind it. And I'll continue to do that. Absolutely. Even as we go down to Mount Adams, we'll put out apples, but I'm not going to film those areas. Where I will film, or where I will put trail cameras up, is on game trails and stuff like that. I'll do that. Sure. But definitely not the gifting locations.
Have you ever caught anything weird on your trail cams?
I have never. No, I haven't. Just regular animals. I did capture. That's not true, because I did capture some stuff, but it was more like UFO activity versus Sasquatch stuff. A lot of people say they go hand in hand, but I don't have any evidence of that.
Do you have you caught any UFO activity on your trail cams?
Yes, the one time, Boulder Creek, right outside of, or right off of Baker Lake again. We hiked up what's called Boulder Creek. I put like 6 trail cameras up there, my buddy Andrew and I, and hoping to see Sasquatch stuff. There was some footprints and some tree breaks up in that area, but I always tried to angle each camera so it didn't just catch the stream bed, but it also caught Mount Baker in the background, just in case there was some other activity that we might capture. And one of the trail cameras out of the 6 did capture what I would consider to be UFO activity, where a silver orb would come down in front of the tree line. So it looked like the size of maybe a softball, not a softball, but like a basketball, the size of a basketball, that sort of thing. And then another one would come along and then shoot up and take a right angle turn right up into the sky. And it's only happened, Dave, in like a 30-second clip. Out of all the cameras, there was only one clip where I got this activity, which amazed me. Out of 6 cameras and all, a month and a half of data collected, and I only had 30 seconds in one 30-second clip where I had 2 objects that were unknowns. So It's pretty wild.
Wow. It's still unexplainable, eh?
Yeah, it is. I can't say exactly what it is. I can tell what an insect is. I can tell what a bird is, or a bat, or those known things. But, when a silver object is reflecting sunlight and it's doing some odd things in the sky, things that can't be, described. A bird's not going to just take a 90-degree turn and do one of these, so, it seems to me like they're drones of some sort, and not, inhabited craft. If they're the size of a basketball, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's pretty wild stuff that we've been able to capture.
And what's your adventure with Jackie going to be like this weekend?
Oh my gosh, it's going to be a blast. So yes, doing the UFO thing as well, and the Bigfoot stuff there at Mount Adams. And Mount Adams, it's a hauntingly beautiful and haunting. It's a haunting place. Basically, there's a lot of Native American lore around Mount Adams, just like you would hear of Shasta. Same sort of thing. That there's underground bases near Mount Adams, just like Shasta. So it's very comparable in that sort of way, and with the lore and stuff like that behind it. And we've caught stuff there many times before. Bigfoot howls and the stuff in the sky. So it's definitely a hotbed of paranormal activity for sure. Cannot wait.
I think you're gonna have a blast, man, and I wish I could go there and be with you and try that out, man, because it sounds like it's gonna be a blast.
It's gonna be so much fun. Other people have mentioned that they might show up.
You need some Merle time up there.
Yeah, definitely need Merle. Anytime that he comes down to Washington, I'd love to go with him and do some investigating. I know he's been looking for somebody else to hang out with. So
Merle's pretty intense. He's pretty intense to investigate with. It's a lot of fun.
That'd be good.
Lee, I want to say a big thank you for filling in for Jackie tonight. Really do appreciate you taking the time to enjoy what we do on this show. And I know you're a big fan, and you and Jackie have your new show coming up on our YouTube channel in just a couple of weeks' time, which we'll announce that very soon. But Lee, great cryptic report as we say hello. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Put your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, buddy.
All right. Good night, man. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to go log off here and do my editing and then go for a hot shower. But thank you to our YouTube audience. Rob will be here tomorrow night filling in for me. I hopefully will be back on Thursday, depending on my health. But we love you, everybody. You guys take care, and good night.
Good night.